I want to first ask you about The Office. Probably, you're not quite at the point where you don't want to talk about The Office anymore, I guess.
No, I'm not.
When it's still going strong, isn't it? Just tell us what you do on that.
I feel that I manage the estate of The Office every day, if I get 100 emails, probably 20 or 30 of them about The Office. Can they use this clip for a quiz machine? Can we do a remake in Russia? Yes. Can we do a remake in India? Definitely. There's 1 billion people. The ratings are going to be great with that one. But yeah, The Office is shown in its original format in about 90 countries around the world.
So that's you being dubbed?
I assume so. Subtitles dubbed, and all English-speaking places, and it's been remade in 7 now, the latest of which is Israel. Israel and Russia are in production now. So
I remember when it first came out in the UK, and it seemed like a peculiarly British thing, and it really tapped so into our sense of humour. But
yes.
Have you worked out why it works across the globe yet?
I think on the face of it, it looks quintessentially English and very parochial. But outside the odd cultural reference, the themes are universal. It's about boy meets girl and making a difference. It's quite existential. Everyone has to work. Everyone has a boss they might not like. Everyone's thrown together with people that they probably wouldn't want to share that much time with if they had a choice. And so I think people identified with that. I think the reason it probably made it in America, where most remakes have failed in the last sort of 30 years, was because my influences were American. I think I sold what they gave me back to them in many ways. That it was a sitcom that also had a romantic element, and there was a trajectory over the 12 parts. So and luck, of course. There's a lot of luck. There's lots of good things that fail that shouldn't. But I think mainly, I think everyone identifies with it. They're big, global, universal issues, really. Same with extras. Extras looked like it was a bit media, but really that was a backdrop. It was about 4 people struggling to get somewhere, and everyone identifies with that, whether it's being an actor or being a hockey player or just doing well at work, I think.
It's always so brilliantly done by you, but when you made it in America, well, when you came to this level of success quite late in your career, didn't you? How old were you?
Well, no, not late in my life, probably early in my career. I mean, I didn't really even start with anything you'd call show business till I was about 37, 38.
And then you did The Office.
That was the first
thing,
and
then it went stratospheric, and now you're a megastar, it has to be said, in the biggest sort of entertainment market in the world, and you're going global around the world. What on earth is that like?
Well, I don't really experience it as such. There's a filter there, because I don't go to all these places. I don't go and walk down premieres of films I'm not in, having roses thrown at me. I sit at home in my pyjamas and find out that so-and-so... Yeah, well, I've made an effort today, because it's...
I'm very impressed. Is this for CNN's benefit?
It's a highbrow show. Yeah, usually...
We're very highbrow.
Exactly. But I suppose I'm in it. I knew why I was getting in it. I'm in it for the work. I'm in it for the creative process. I wasn't in it for the money and the awards and the fame. And in fact, I feared the fame a little bit, because I wanted people to know that I hadn't signed this strange contract with the devil that make me famous and then you can go through my bins and tell lies about me. I never made that contract, and I've been very careful to not lump myself in with people who live their life like an open wound and do anything to be famous or to be on the telly.
But it must have helped coming into it late, as you say.
Absolutely.
Because you were, your personality's sort of set, and you appreciate everything you've got, I guess. And
well, I think Oprah Winfrey said, "If you don't know who you are by the time you're famous, it will define you." What does she know? But yeah, I suppose it was a wiser head on my shoulders. And Stephen, who I work with, who was probably 23 when I met him, much younger than me.
Stephen Merchant.
Yeah, I mean, he was born 58. He's a very wise little chap. So,
okay. And so you've had to sort of continue the success, and you did it with extras, of course. You've done some movies, but right now you're working on another TV show, which is going out in America, right?
The Ricky Gervais Show, which is based on our podcast. I started podcasting for a laugh a few years ago, and I think because it was such in its infancy, and I was probably the first sort of high-profile actor or comedian to podcast, we broke the world record. And it sort of snowballed, and now we've had 200 million downloads. And I think that initially it was successful because of my profile, because The Office is in so many countries. But I think they stayed listening because of Carl Pilkington. He's an oddity. He's a little Englander. He's one of those people that has an opinion about everything. He's made his mind up on most things by the time he was 13 or 14 and didn't go to school. But he's fascinating. I think I think you'd have to consider him a real artist. He sees the world through different eyes. And myself and Stephen play these sort of more professorial media types who are goading this little chap to say something stupid, and he does. And they've animated that. It's halfway through its run on HBO in the US. It's coming to Channel 4 in the UK on the 23rd of April, St George's Day. Easy to remember.
Yeah, we were talking about...
Actually, no, I remember St George's Day. I know.
Why do we know it's St Patrick's Day?
Exactly, St Patrick's Day. Anywhere you are in the world, you have to have a Guinness. St George's Day. They go, what's that?
But you've got to know these things now you're travelling the world. Don't you get more patriotic when you travel the world?
I do. I travel anywhere on a horse in armour, just to let them know.
Sherlock Holmes book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Katie from Plano in Texas asks, what advice would you give to an aspiring comedian in today's society?
Find your own voice. Talk about what you know about. Talk about what you know. Don't try and be something else. Don't try and create an act or a character for the sake of it. Go out there and tell people what is funny about you. Why are you different? Don't be macho. Don't try and go out there and outwit the world. Talk about your inadequacies. Show about a bad day you've had. You should never be above the audience when you're a comedian. You've got to shamble out and be a putz and let them know that, you know, you have a bad day too. No rush. Don't think you have to make it by 23. You know, I remember when I made it and The Office went like that and it went stratospheric and biggest selling DVD, and I turned to my girlfriend and I was about 40 and I said, why didn't I do this earlier?
40? People won't believe that.
No, and she said, because you wouldn't have been any good. And I think you have to have something to say. You have to have something about... Larry David said you have to come to terms with your own inadequacies to be funny. And I'd say be original. I mean, you know, have your heroes and be influenced, certainly. Stand on the shoulders of giants. But you've got to be the best person for the job. They've got to think there's no one else that can do that quite like this guy. So that's too much advice, isn't it?
No, it's brilliant.
She's bored.
No,
Peyton's
just
bored.
be yourself. Don't copy Ricky Gervais.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, don't copy me.
Mark Payton asks, after all the awards and successes you've achieved in the last 10 years, do you feel you'd be happy to give up and retire now, or is there still more you'd be able to say, you want to be able to say that you've done with your life? I mean, is there more you want to achieve?
I feel that I haven't got started. I feel every day that I haven't got started. You improve, you get better, you have, you know, different things make you angry, your perspectives change, you know. My stand-up isn't now talking about, you know, being on the tube and spilling pints of milk. It's about...
opening the Bible, I remember, from a live show.
Oh, well, yeah.
That was brilliant.
Yeah, you're never too old to be controversial. But no, you find new things, and you find new avenues, and you talk about your perspective changes. No, I feel I'm just getting started. Also, it doesn't feel like I'm retiring from anything. Winston Churchill said, if you find a job you really love, you'll never work again. And that's what it feels like. I feel so privileged to get up in the morning and have an idea and try to put that into practice. It's still fun. It's still fun, it's exciting, and I know how lucky I am as well.
You were sort of all UK based, weren't you, until The Office? You were always in the UK.
Well, I am still UK based. I mean, I flip back and forth between New York and London. I've got the best of both worlds.
I want to ask you a question from Kira in New York, because you're huge in America now, as well as the UK and other parts. But what is the difference between American humour and British humour, if any? Because people in this country were fascinated to see you translate to the US market, because, as I said, they see you as a real British comedian.
That question comes up a lot, I think, because of the two offices. There's a myth that goes around in Britain that Americans don't get irony, which is totally untrue. I mean, you just have to look at The Simpsons and The Daily Show. They get irony. I think what that comes from is the fact that Americans don't use irony as much as we do. If two Brits meet, it's the first one to get out a dark, sarcastic comment, you know? that comes from our upbringing. I think, in general, Americans are more optimistic, more down the line people than Brits, and we have this dark underbelly of pessimism that comes out. And, you know, that Americans are brought up to believe they can be the next president of the United States. Brits are told it won't happen to you. And that comes out in all art, I think. And I think a big difference in sitcom is probably that Americans celebrate a winner, and we like an underdog until he's not an underdog anymore. And then we've had enough of it.
Did you only realise all of this when you went over there and looked back?
Yes, I suppose so, yeah.
Were you disappointed in
No, because it's you know, you are the sum of your parts. But I do feel that America is a slightly more optimistic place than Britain. But I love Britain for all that it is.
You live here still?
I live here. I haven't given up on it yet. I pay my taxes here. I'm not a tax exile.
Which of the following would it hurt you most to lose? Money, fame, sense of humour. That's someone called Smudge. Sense of humour with their name in Switzerland.
Well, I mean, the obvious answer is sense of humour. And if you didn't have one, you'd be in that blind spot like David Brent, and you probably wouldn't mind. I mean, everyone thinks they've got a great sense of humour, and they can't all be right.
No.
But no, it is very subjective, and if someone says I'm not funny, then they're right. If they say I am funny, they're also right.
Well, some people say that in a funny way, don't they?
Well, yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there was a survey that just came out recently that humour can't really be taught. It's innate. You know, you're sort of hardwired to be funny. You've got funny bones or not. Jerry Seinfeld said that a sense of humour is like a sexuality. You can't choose it, which is great. I think that's probably true.
What is it? Is there a sort of a scene or a comedian or something that you remember, a specific moment that really made you laugh and you sort of look up to as like the comedy moment?
No, but it's my heroes are probably Laurel and Hardy, because they taught me that comedy is about empathy. It's not just about being funny. It's not just about gags. It's not just about puns and wordplay and saying funny lines. It's about relationship, and it's about being precarious. And I think you've got to like someone to laugh at them. And Laurel and Hardy nailed that 100 years ago.
Timeless, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, big themes.
Yeah.
Big themes.
Danielle Snade from Toronto in Canada. My family and I are loyal fans, you'll be glad to hear. My husband and son constantly quote your shows. My question is, what makes Ricky laugh?
Carl Pilkington. I think he's the... People not trying to be funny, really. I think that the least funny thing is someone desperately trying to be funny, like a clown.
I want to ask you who you don't like, but you're not going to tell me.
Is there anything less funny than a clown?
I find it quite scary.
I know. Just stop behaving like that. Carl Pilkington. I think Louis C.K. is probably the best stand-up in the world at the moment. The funniest person you know isn't a comedian. It's a friend of yours. It's a family member, because of your investment with that person. And I find people funny that don't want to be laughed at. You know, the characters I've played, like Pincus in Ghost Town, he's funny because he's angry. He's not trying to be funny, but you're laughing at him because he's angry. He didn't want that to happen. Scientists say that probably the first joke, the first piece of humour witnessed in our evolution was a caveman hitting his head or stubbing his toe. Because, well, he didn't want that to happen. He didn't know that was going to happen. And so you put yourself in his shoes.
And you're an evolution of that.
Of course.
You're an evolution of the caveman fan.
I am. And it's still funny to see someone hit their head on a cave.
Matthew from Gibraltar, what actor or actress would you most like to work with?
I think the big obvious ones, Clint.
Have you been sort of taken aback by an actor coming up to you and being interested in you?
Yeah, well, always. It's funny, every time I go to like an award show, like the Golden Globes or the Emmys, the people that come up to me and say, "Oh, I'd love to have been in extras," and I call Steve and go, "Why did we stop? We've got these people." Try. I know. I'm really blown away by that. That as much as you do this for yourself, you do want to be respected by your peers, and that's nothing to do with being a famous actor or a comedian. I'd want that if I was a research scientist. I want people to go, "He's a good research scientist. He takes the data down. He's really, really good, conscientious." And certainly, as an artist, there is a thrill that people like Christopher Guest and Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld and Billy Connolly, and those heroes of yours think that what you do is good. Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I didn't get a big thrill from that, certainly.
Of course, and when you compare TV, which is what first made you famous, to film, is that harder? Is it easier? Do you, which do you prefer?
It swings and roundabouts. You know, you think that a film is more timeless, maybe, and you know, it's a higher art form, and it costs a lot more money, and you know, but then TV in the last 10 years took on film and won in many cases. Things like The Sopranos and The Wire are audacious. They're amazing. Yeah, yeah. There's not many films that can compete with those. And I do like the common consciousness of TV, people watching it. That's changing now with TiVo and everything. But I do like, I love them both. But then I love radio because it's accessible. I love
that podcast you were mentioning.
Podcast is great.
Just ballistic and actually increased podcasting generally in the UK when it started, didn't it?
But it's nice to have no restriction at all, just your own taste and decency.
And I guess it's quite intimate radio.
Yeah, and it gets in your head. It gets, you know, people. It's a medium of convenience. They can do it with driving, ironing, washing up, and people connect with radio like nothing else because they usually listen to it alone as well. So I don't want to. I want to do it all. I want to do film, TV, radio, podcasting. I'll probably do some ultimate fighting. No, I won't.
Anything serious?
Yeah, well, our latest film, which is released on the 14th of April, Cemetery Junction, which was written by myself and Stephen Merchant, that's an out-and-out drama. There are funny bits, but it's the most dramatic piece we've ever done. We always snuck in drama. We always snuck in that emotional journey to things like The Office and Extras, and Invention of Lying was, you know, moved to more dramatic territory halfway through. But Cemetery Junction, you'd have to say it was a drama.
Why or why didn't you kiss Jennifer Garner in the movie The Invention of Lying? That's from Nicholas in Croatia.
Because I think it would be. I think in many romantic comedies, it's a glib and crass ending that's meant to go, they lived happily ever after. But that doesn't prove that at all. And one of my biggest influences, it always crops up. It's in everything I've done. Invention of Lying, Ghost Town, Cemetery Junction, is a film called The Apartment. And at the end, he says, I love you. And she's sort of shuffling the cards. And he says, did you hear what I said? I absolutely adore you. And she says, shut up and deal. And I think that shows they're soulmates. And I think that's so much more romantic, that it means it's based on something. And with Ghost Town, I was a dentist, and she says it hurts when I smile, and I say I can fix that. In The Invention of Lying, she says I want little fat kids with snub noses, and I go I'm your man. And I think these are better lines. I think it's more romantic, to be honest.
You moved to LA, or you worked a lot in LA from the UK, and there is, you know, as you say, a bit of cynicism in the UK. Did sort of LA ever live up to your sort of worst expectations when you were over there?
Oh, LA, I mean, not LA in general, but I suppose what people mean by LA, they mean the waiting room for Hollywood. You know, there are waiters that have written more stuff than me, and that's great. But I think the cliches are probably, in many cases, truer than you'd ever imagine. I mean, it is all about money. Hollywood is all about money, and you can have conversations with people that they're into their art, but they're looking at the box office at 5:45 on the Friday. Do you know what I mean? And I think you've got to either play that game or not play it. And I've decided not to play it.
You just do what you want to do.
I only do it to please me.
And if it's successful, then.
And I keep doing that until someone says you can't have any more money. You're wasting money. And then if you take yourself out of that, you're bulletproof. Yeah. I don't try and please critics. I don't even really try and please broad audiences. I do things for me, and like-minded people.
You were saying how Office got really successful when you were 40. What were you doing before that? You were a pop star at one point, weren't you?
Oh, a failed pop star.
So you didn't do that well?
No, that was when I was 21 or something. No, I worked in an office. I worked in an office for 8 years.
So you were building up all of that sort of experience for
I
the
suppose
office.
so, and I've always been quite a people watcher. Growing up, you know, the point was to, you know, tease people and have a laugh, and I think that's the best thing about Britain, really, that we do wear our humour on our sleeve, and we use it as a sword and a shield, and we play fight with people, and we find out other things with our humour, and I think a point of a comedian isn't just to make people laugh, it's to make people think, and I think you should take people to areas they haven't been before. What's the point in doing comedy that anyone in the audience could do? What's the point in just being safe and anodyne and saying, you know, the difference about cats and dogs, or isn't it funny you take an umbrella out and it doesn't rain? Brilliant. You know, I think you've got to be challenging them, and so yeah, I think you also have to assume as a famous comedian, a successful comedian, actor, or whatever, if you are doing anything right at all and anything of any worth, you have to assume that as many people hate you as love you.
But they don't hate you. Everyone loves you. All of our emails, we've had hundreds of emails. They're all
Yeah,
so
but the people who
positive.
hate me can't be
I don't
bothered
know
to
anyone
email.
that hates you.
They're too angry to email. They
You've got to do something really bad. Make people hate you.
I'm trying. Did you see the Golden Globes? I'm trying
That
to
was
annoy
even
people.
brilliant. You were so insulting to some people, and they laughed. How do you do that?
Well, because you've got to play the outsider there. Also, I didn't want to hurt people's feelings. I didn't want to.
You're not an outsider now, though, are you? You're an insider. If you're hosting the Golden Globes...
You've got to try and stay an outsider to be a comedian. As soon as you're in the gang, who cares?
Does your family and friends, do they sort of... they're obviously proud of you, but do they sort of laugh at that, you know, how did this happen? Do they sort of...
No, I mean, I'm their little brother or their uncle or their nephew. I'm not the bloke off the telly, which is the way it should be. My friends and family keep my feet firmly on the ground, and there was a lot of honesty in my family. I remember when I was I think 13 or 14. I've got much older brothers and sisters, and I said to my mum over my cornflakes, I said, why are my brothers and sisters so much older than me? She went, because you was a mistake. Like that. I went, thanks.
I just want to ask you one last question, because we're a news channel. I mean, does news... How does news play into your life and your professional work? And do you follow it, and is it important?
Someone has to knock on my door and say we're under attack, because I don't read papers. I don't really watch the news. As Carl Pilkington, the great Carl Pilkington said, he said, if something important is happening, you'll know about it. He said, you watch the news, it's just all bad. He said, don't watch the news.
Do you think we're too negative?
No, I think that, you know, news is under pressure of being an entertainment programme. I think that's it. I mean,
is that a new thing? Do you think?
No, it's not a new thing. It's been going. I mean, the weather now. You watch the weather in America, and it's going to be amazing. It's end of the earth Tuesday. Tuesday comes and goes, well, that wasn't as bad as we thought, but tomorrow's going to. It's going to be Armageddon, and then Tuesday. Watch next week. You know, they've got to trail it. Trailing the weather.
But it's quite serious that you're not watching it, isn't it? I guess. Do you feel like you should? Is it our fault that you're not watching? Or
I don't know.
I don't want to get too serious, but I was just wondering.
I mean, it depends how it affects your life. I think Carl Pilkington's probably right. I think if something really important happens, you will find out in good time. You know, I think there are too many barroom philosophers and analysts, you know, and that's not just politics, how everyone could run the government better, but it's how you see these fat blokes at a bar going, well, he was slow up front. You have a go then. You score the goal, fatty. Let's see you. There's too many critics. There's too many experts. And now the internet, forums are like graffiti now. Yeah, this is how I'd run the country. Oh, go on then. Go on, have a go. What a thankless task that is.